Hey, this is Brent Jensen. You're listening to No Sleep Till Sudbury, the show where we talk about the music that makes your skin vibrate. This show is brought to you by Pariah Pickups, handcrafting the very best guitar pickups all the way down in Detroit. Check them out at pariahpickups.com. To support the No Sleep Till Sudbury show on Patreon, visit patreon.com/Brent Jensen Music. All right, my guest this week is Order of Canada recipient and 11-time Juno Award winner, Mr. Murray McLauchlan. Murray returns to the show this week to talk about his new record entitled Hourglass, and of course, the songs that make his skin vibrate. Here he is. Murray, welcome back to the show. It's a pleasure to have you. It's too bad that we have to do it over the phone, but I'm thankful to have the opportunity nonetheless. Thanks for coming on.
It was my pleasure, Brent. It's really nice to have a chance to talk to you again. I hope I don't use 2 hours where I only should use one. You know me, I'm a talker.
If we go for two, we go for two. The last time we did speak, Murray, was in person back in April 2019, I think it was. And today we reconvene to talk about your upcoming new album, Hourglass. It's out on July 9th, I think, on True North Records. And it is your 20th release.
Yeah, I'm never really square with which one the number is. There's varying accounts depending on whether you count live ones or not.
Mm.
That could be the accurate number. I really don't know, to tell you the truth.
So Hourglass takes a very hard look at racism and economic disparity. Most of it was written during the pandemic, but it's also reflective of a worldview beyond the pandemic, outlining issues that have been in play for some time.
Well, I was able to do quite a lot of the writing during, not this, but the last summer.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, I don't think of it as a pandemic album, but it's the time where I had the kind of luxury to sit down and distill a lot of the things that were going through my head. Songs that are on this. Yeah, I think, you understand pretty well the song for Anton Kurdi. I mean, that was an event that precipitated 60,000 Syrian refugees coming to Canada.
Yeah.
And I will never get the image of that little boy out of my head.
Mm.
So powerful. And of course, the 1%, well, that had its origins some time ago, actually, during what they called the Occupy Wall Street movement.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of those people were ridiculed in the media. They don't have a spokesperson. They don't even know. Well, they don't know why they're there. They don't really have a point. I mean, what are they doing? And I kind of looked at that and went, I think I know exactly why they're there. They're there because they're terrified.
Mm-hmm.
Globalization and multinational corporations that are, more powerful than governments that move wherever they can, where the labor's cheapest to screw people around. That, the increasing concentration of wealth in a very, very few to the detriment of a great many. And that's not a recipe for a great future. So I started to really look at things that way during that time frame.
Yeah.
So, so some of this has been stewing for a while. And of course, the election of, I can't call him by name. I just can't do it. So I call him the other guy, like Biden did. He's such a loathsome human being. But of course, a lot of the song America, for instance, which really looks at the United States through the lens of a dysfunctional family.
Mm-hmm.
Or Shining City on a Hill, which, cops a quote from a long time ago, but Ronald Reagan, I think, made it famous. But I wrote that to be sort of a little gospel inspirational tune. Like, come on, guys, you can, just by trying to get there, you get better,
Yeah.
So they're ideas that have been distilling for quite some time.
Yeah. Okay. And in addition to that, the record also contains songs like A Thomson Day for Tom Thomson.
Yeah.
Which is the first single from the record, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there were two pre-releases before that. They were basically put up as videos. I asked for that to happen because I thought they were important to get out. And, the one was I Live on a White Cloud came out first because the George Floyd trial was in full cry by that time. And then, of course, the 1%, because I was actually going to put out Shining City on a Hill, but I had a talk with my wife, Denise, and she said, no, don't do that. No, put the 1% around because I think it's like a better song and you can get more flies with honey. I knew what she meant.
Yeah.
You can put like a fairly substantial lyric inside of a light and beautiful musical framework and people are more inclined to like it,
And Denise, I would think, would know a thing or two about single releases, Murray.
Well, she might, for sure. Yeah. I mean, we do have an understanding. Like she doesn't attempt to tell me how to write songs, and I never told her how to run a record company, but there is some bleed over, So yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say a Thomson Day for Tom Thomson. I watched the video and it made me smile because it looks to be shot in the outdoors of central Ontario. I'm from Sudbury, so I go back and forth quite a lot, and I love that drive. It reminded me of how much I do love that drive and how lucky we are to live in such a beautiful part of the world.
Yeah, it's the origins of that particular song. I mean, Tom Thomson is an iconic figure, of course, in not only Canadian painting, but in Canadian history. He's as iconic as, well, anybody, really. And we've all, I'm sure, seen copies of The West Wind on the school wall for our entire lives.
Mm-hmm.
It's an iconic painting, and I'm blessed to be able to go. I have a membership at the Art Gallery of Ontario, and when the painting's on the wall there, I never miss a chance to just go and stand in front of it. And it's mind-blowing. It's a fantastic piece of work.
Mm-hmm.
It's energetic. It's iconic. And sometimes I think because of where you are, because of where we live, we've kind of been in that painting.
Yeah.
So what the song really does is it takes that painting as a jumping off point, and it puts you in the painting so that, the idea is that for that one brief moment, when you're in that moment, you appreciate how ephemeral life is and how really spectacularly wonderful every minute that you have is. I think that's what the painting has always done for me. So I kind of wanted to give back to,
I love it. I love the video. I thought it was very well done. So congratulations on that, and congratulations on the entire record.
Thank you. I had a great time out. I just got that canoe a couple of years ago.
Oh, did you?
I've coveted an old Grumman canoe for like most of my adult life, ever since I saw my first one. It was in an Expedition Outfitters at Algonquin Park, and it is the classic great canoe, from those wonderful folks that brought you airplanes and delivery vans.
So, Murray, you've got a great list of songs here.
Yeah.
It starts with Bob Dylan, Blowin' in the Wind.
When I was still in art school,
mm-hmm.
but, well into my teenage years, I first became aware of this guy from New York that was making a lot of noise as a songwriter. And it also, when I first heard his work, realized that it was really something that hadn't happened before. Nowadays you'd call it a mashup or a fusion, but in those days I recognized that it was basically putting contemporary poetry to kind of classic folk forms.
Mm-hmm.
In many occasions, like he actually swiped traditional melodies like Irish folk songs and put new lyrics to them. So, that was perfectly legitimate. They called it the folk process.
Mm-hmm.
But the particular thing, like everything that happens kind of rides a wave. It's phenomenological in that way. I picked that song, Blowin' in the Wind, because it was written at the height of the civil rights movement.
Mm.
It was written, at the height of the Selma marches and voter registration drives and people getting beat up and fire hosed, and all of that stuff that was going on was front and center. It's a really quite simple piece of poetry, and it asks a question. And it's probably the most eloquent and timeless song about human rights, not just civil rights for Black people, but human rights for everyone, mm-hmm. that I think has ever really been put to paper. Yeah. It's a fantastic song, and it's timeless.
It really is. Yeah. When it was written, I think this is like 62, 63. This is from Freewheelin'. And,
yeah, that's right.
It was only 2 verses, I think, originally. And then the middle one was added later.
I did not know that, but yeah. I know 3 verses to it, and I've sung it myself. In concert with Cindy, we just put together a beautiful little arrangement of it.
Yeah,
and again, it's some of the best things are the simplest things.
Oh, absolutely.
And I know that now it's probably less than correct to use the term man or mankind, but at the time the song was written, it wasn't as popular or necessary to say humankind or whatever.
Yeah.
So, but just asking the questions, that image, how many roads must a man walk down before you call him a man? That kind of sort of says it all,
mm-hmm.
really.
Tremendous song.
Yeah.
And, this was named as an anthem, later on, and Bob Dylan, didn't feel comfortable with that, which I thought was really interesting.
I don't know the man. I've met him once, I think, but he's an enigmatic sort of person. I think probably very, very conflicted. Didn't want to be who he was and didn't not know quite who he wanted to be. But, the full glare of insane amounts of fame probably scared the living shit right out of him.
I think so.
So, I think he spiraled out under it.
Yeah, he didn't seem to care much for the spotlight.
Well, there are wiser people than me that have, said stuff like, fame is an inconvenience that must be endured on the way to riches, I guess. But I don't think anybody, really wants people clambering up on your roof and looking down your chimney because they think you're some sort of a prophet, Yeah. I can't imagine what life would have been like for such a person, and I wouldn't want to be able to imagine it.
Well, yeah, I'm sure you've probably got a couple of stories, Murray, in that capacity, have you not?
I live in a very sane country, and I do concerts and people come, and I talk to people after the shows, and they're rational human beings that ask questions or have opinions, but there isn't that kind of celebrity lunacy in this country that it kind of exists, driven by kind of the pop culture industry and social media. Like, Canadians are more rational people, and I'm a working artist. Like that's how I think of myself. I have never really sought to be famous. I've only just sought to try and do like the best work that I can and keep working as long as I can because I don't really want to retire.
Yeah.
I have a different set of goals. I mean, I think that people who are really desperate to be famous have an underlying yawning need that can never really be serviced.
Yeah.
And to be frank with you, I've met quite a number of people who are very, very, very famous, and they're all barking mad.
I don't doubt that. Roy Orbison is next. Pretty Woman. It's a great pick. Well,
one of the greatest singers of all time, for starters, and kind of an interesting trajectory because I have several kind of little Roy Orbison vignettes. One of them was like the first time I actually heard Pretty Woman was kind of playing hooky from school and hitchhiking to Montreal with a pal of mine. And it was on the car radio in one of our rides. And I heard that guitar lick and I just about went ape shit. It was just, it was such a powerful lick. And I love the groove. It's that 4-beat snare, like bang, 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 bang. It's relentless. And usually you're listening to a drum pattern that's like on a 2 and a 4 or it's other some kind, but that really aggressive 4-beat snare drove that song like a tank. It was amazing. And then, he was famous. He had all that tragedy, awful things that happened and, losing his family and such. And I saw him in the bar at the Skyline Hotel near the airport in Toronto, during the down periods when, he wasn't really getting the gigs anymore. And he was great. But, it was like a half full bar and half of the people in it weren't paying any attention. And I was like aghast, totally aghast that was the case. And then the Katie Lang thing happened and the Wilburys.
Oh, yeah.
And then, up came Roy and his songs were rediscovered and as it should be. So it's a great trajectory. It's a redemption story, really. I love Roy Orbison. May he rest.
Yeah, no, you're right. I like that too. I was very happy that happened with him and the Wilburys. It was very redemptive in my opinion.
Yeah, his contribution to It's All Right was a really great one. That was a wonderful blend. Jeff Lynne, bless his heart, putting that together. It was a big deal.
Yeah, and they paid a little tribute to him in the video for it too, which is really neat.
Yeah, I wish he'd survived longer. It would have been fun. For him, I think it would have been fun.
Yeah. Frank Sinatra. This is a classic. I've Got You Under My Skin, live at the Sands.
Yeah, that's one of the greatest records that's ever been made. I mean, if you want to pick a big band that just swings and kicks ass, you couldn't do better. You could not do better than Count Basie. And of course, Sinatra was at the peak of his abilities at that point. Just back phrasing and being able to swing and playing an audience and having fun. And it was so sophisticated and so cool. But that particular song, I actually did that song myself with a big band. It was like aghast to yeah.
Oh wow,
yeah,
that's awesome.
I did. Yeah, it was like a little special performance thing, and I did a full. Well, I can't do Sinatra. Who would try? But I had a great time when that trombone solo hit. I nearly, as they say in Yiddish, plutzed. It was great fun.
Well,
But the special appeal for me for that song is I lost my brother a year ago this last March,
sorry.
and I kind of, it was just barely pre-pandemic, so I was able to be with him.
Mm-hmm.
And during the last little while of his life, he had dementia, so he was kind of losing himself. And the thing that would really bring him out of himself, I'd put on Sinatra, and suddenly, he'd be playing air drums and tapping his feet, and
wow,
and it really worked for him right up until the very end. I had a special tape that I made that I just sort of put by his ear on his bed, and his feet would move.
Isn't that just a remarkable thing, Murray?
Yeah, and Under My Skin was just absolutely one of the tops. That and Come Fly With Me.
I love that.
Yeah, it was an interesting experience, the whole music and dementia and end of life thing. I mean, just as an aside, I also put Sweet Bergman-esque, from Debussy.
Mm-hmm.
Clair de Lune is the song in particular from that suite, and he would hold up his hands and like play the piano along with it.
Oh, that's so
It was
great.
gorgeous. Yeah.
That's awesome. Ray Charles is next. Come Rain or Come Shine.
Oh, man. Well, first of all, Come Rain or Come Shine, that version of it
mm-hmm.
is like maybe one of the greatest records that has ever been made. And Ray hits a money note at the end of that thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like grown Marine colonels would burst into tears just hearing him sing that note. It is just the most beautiful version of that song I have ever heard. But my particular affection for Ray Charles began a long time ago when I was invited by Columbia Records representative to come this was in Vancouver, to go down to a club called the Cavern.
Okay.
And Ray was in town. He wasn't performing for the public, but he was working up and rehearsing the band and the backing vocals for an upcoming tour. And so they were inviting a limited number of people to come down and kind of sit at the tables of the club just to kind of hear how the show was. So this was, me sitting there with Frank from the record company and one other person listening to Ray Charles with an 18-piece orchestra and the Raylettes in a club 25 feet from the stage.
That's amazing.
And if I could have freaking died and gone to heaven, I would have. And he played for like 2 hours.
Oh, wow.
Just nonstop, like everything. Georgia, Tell Me What I Say, and of course, Come Rain or Come Shine, all of the songs. And it just swinging like crazy. So, I mean, I have had a huge love for Ray Charles. I think he's got more soul in his little finger than pretty well anybody else has in their whole body. So that's my Ray Charles connection. That's why I love Ray Charles so much.
Oh, he's fantastic. Last one, Blossom Dearie, Now at Last.
Isn't she sweet?
Yes.
I mean, she's also tough as nails, and she was one of the best studio piano players in New York. Like she was a session player.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, she was like a serious force to be reckoned with, and really, really good, solid soloist. But she had this really quirky, breathy, lovely little voice. And, one of the first times I ever heard her, she was singing Comment allez-vous? Like she was singing in French because she spent quite a lot of time in Paris, as a lot of American jazz people did. And while she was there, she met a group of people that started doing backgrounds with her. And they became a group called the Swingle Singers.
Okay.
That got famous for an album they did called Switched on Bach. It was all of Bach's fugues, but just done with vocals. It was hugely popular. It was in the jazz world and in the pop world too. But Blossom Dearie has a way of singing a song that just nobody else does. And Now at Last, it was written by one of the Ames brothers, but it's really the core of the song. It's about regret. And one day I was driving down the spine of British Columbia on the Coquihalla Highway. I was the music curator in the right seat, and Mark Jordan was in the left seat driving the vehicle. So I was curating the music, and I put on Now at Last by Blossom Dearie. And, it always gets me, like it does. It's just a beautiful song. It's so beautiful that I learned it. I learned how to play it and everything. But halfway through the song, I just kind of glanced over at Mark. He had just tears running down his cheek. It was like driving along and trying to see straight, bawling his eyes. So Blossom Dearie can kind of do that to you.
Oh, that's great. Have you seen Mark lately?
I have seen him periodically. The last time was probably about a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
He's up at his cottage for the most part now.
Okay.
But his son, Ezra,
Mm-hmm.
has been posting these insane little videos called, they're basically comments on what he calls the vintage Jew. You know, it'll be pictures of Mark out on the lawn tractor, and then his son narrates these like stealth videos, and they're stupidly hilarious.
That's great.
Anyway, yeah, so I do talk to Mark on the phone, but with the COVID thing and all, it's been kind of hard to get together. So I've talked to Mark, I've talked to Ian, and I've talked to Cindy, but it's always by phone or Zoom or something, you know.
Yeah. Well, you guys, I think, will reconvene when this is all over, I'm sure, right?
Oh, I certainly hope so. You know, if we're not too old by the time this is over. It's still looking to be a while before the theaters open back up.
Yeah. Well, I'm hopeful. I mean, that, you know, lately the numbers have been pretty promising. So.
Yeah, it's, you know, the numbers can be promising, but it's also getting people into the habit of actually going out again and doing stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, I was watching a movie with Denise the other night, a Benedict Cumberbatch spy movie called The Courier. And there's a little piece in it where like his character is in Moscow with this Russian guy, and he's never been to the ballet. Mm-hmm. And so his Russian friend takes him to the ballet, and then there's shots of the Bolshoi doing Swan Lake, and the passage they chose was the Dying Swan section of the ballet. Mm-hmm. And I was sitting looking at the TV going, oh, I love the ballet. Please, come on. Let's get the world going again, for crying out loud.
I know. It's been so long. Well, we'll see. I'm hoping by end of year. I'm hopeful. I'm an optimist, Murray.
Well, I think that's the right thing to be, and by and large, so am I, to tell you the truth. So I'm going to get tomorrow morning, bright and chirpy. I'm off to get my second shot of the fizzy vaccine. So
good, man. There you go.
Yeah,
you'll be all set.
I'm on.
Good for you. Well, the record comes out July 9, Hourglass on True North, and I am looking forward to it. Check out the videos, folks. They're on YouTube. I wish you all the best with this, Murray. I want to thank you for taking the time today. I really appreciate it.
Well, you know me. I would have talked your ear off for another 3 hours. Always a pleasure, man. Always a pleasure.
Pleasure talking to you, Murray. Take good care of yourself, all right? We'll talk soon.
You bet. Well, as we say in the aviation community, keep the pointy end forward and the tail up.
I like that. I'm going to use that.
All right.
All right. Take good care, my friend.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, this has been No Sleep Till Sudbury with my very special guest, Mr. Murray McLauchlan. Till next time, folks, take good care.
Brent Jensen is the best-selling author of No Sleep Till Sudbury, Leftover People, and All My Favorite People Are Broken. All titles available in stores and on Amazon worldwide.